I'm a hip articular. From the hip down, I have a prosthetic limb all the way down from my left-hand side.
How did you lose your limb?
I was born like that. It was more congenital, like a birth defect, they call it nowadays. But that's how I was actually born that way. And from there on in, my whole life, I'm 35 years old, and that's what I was accustomed to. To me, it's like having a prosthetic is like having second nature, you know? It's like, I don't even know myself all these years that it's there sometimes until something goes wrong with the prosthetic, but with the new prosthetic, the technology today from the OrthoRemedy, it doesn't even second guess me. I don't have no problems whatsoever.
I lost my right foot when I was 10 due to a congenital birth defect, so I've always been in either a brace, and I've been wearing prosthesis since I was 10, 34 years.
Actually, I had a podiatrist who made a mistake. He used bad sterile method, gave me an infection. Fought it for, I was in the hospital for 9 weeks. We fought it, we tried to stop it from happening, remove 2 toes. And then when you're sick and you're laying there and you've got an infection running through your body and they're giving you so much medication that you don't feel like you can't eat anything anymore because it tastes like metal, you just say, this isn't worth it, and they're not going to be able to save it anyway. So you figure you might as well save as much of your leg as possible and start to try to live a normal life again. So I talked to my wife about it and my kids, and that's the decision that we made. And really, in the long run, it was the best decision. It was a hard decision, but it was the best decision I made.
I was born with a birth defect, so for the first 9 or 10 years of my life, I had multiple surgeries to kind of try to correct that, and it just didn't work. So when I was 10, they did the amputation. And since then, you know, I've been wearing a prosthesis.
I was born admittedly with a birth defect. I was born with a muscle, tissue, and bone deficiency. I was born with 2 legs, and for approximately, I'd say about 8 years or so, we went through enormous tests and operations and bone grafts to try to save my leg. I can remember very vividly going through a process called artificial stimulation, in which I was literally hooked up to a box. You know, it's an exaggeration to say 24 hours a day, but it was close to 16, quite a bit of the day. And I guess the purpose of the technology in the 70s was to send electronic stimuli, if you will, through this cable that was supposed to enhance and promote bone and tissue growth. I'm sure the technology is much, much more advanced now, but after 7 or 8 years of getting second opinions and third opinions, my parents finally decided, now is the time. We have a son. He's in 2nd grade. He can't walk without assistance, and we want him to live a normal life as possible. So just the time was right to amputate. And sometimes people will say, Don, what's the worst day of your life? And I'll say, February 22nd, 1979. And they'll say, well, what's the best day of your life? Same day.
It's just 5 years ago. And what had happened a year and a half before that, I went into the hospital because I got a pressure blister. And while in the hospital, I picked up some sort of a staph infection. And they thought I had reactions to the medicine they gave me, but they thought they had killed it because all of the tests came back negative. However, it had gotten into my heel. And when they discovered it 18 months later, it had eaten the whole heel. So the surgeon who did it said I had a choice, no leg or no life. So I went to New York and had the surgery done. And surgery was done in February, and by May I was walking again. Then I was fine for 3 years, and I got 2 cracked vertebrae with an infection in the spine. And by the time I finished that 2 months later, I couldn't walk anymore. Couldn't, do anything. And right before I had gotten sick, I came to Tom to get a new prosthesis. So he was designing it and all, and then I got sick, and I ended up at the same rehab center where he worked. So we went there, and he continued designing the new one, but because of the lack of walking and all for almost 5 months, they had to use my old one, and then I got walking and all, and then Tom eventually designed this prosthesis, which is designed at an angle, which holds my knee in from going crazy and helps me walk more. And he also, while I was in rehab, yelled at me that if I didn't start walking, I might as well just go home and sit on a chair that lifts me up. So I figured, that wasn't going to work.